J.K. Rowling, Part 6. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. We continue to consider the evidence to make a determination as to what J.K. Rowling is. Is she a narcissist? Is she simply narcissistic, but not a narcissist? Might she be a normal? Or could she even be an empath? In so doing, we now turn to various controversies that have surrounded the author, and we start by examining a number of legal disputes in relation to the author and Harry Potter. It is invariably the case that when somebody meets with success, and considerable success, in relation to something that they have created, that there are cries of plagiarism. Breaches of copyright are alleged. This can be sometimes because it is actually the case that this has occurred. In other instances, it's as a consequence of cranks, misguided individuals who, in their own form of magical thinking, see a similarity between what they have created and the famous work and think in essence they should be rewarded, often simply amounting to extortion. In some instances, it is an honest allegation that's put forward where there are similarities, but they're insufficient to meet the level that is required for a successful claim. Nevertheless, achieving success on the scale that J.K. Rowling has done invariably has resulted in allegations that she has used other people's work. And this also provides us with some insight with regard to what she might be. In 1999, American author Nancy Stueffer alleged copyright and trademark infringement by Rowling of her 1984 works, The Legend of Ra and the Muggles, and Larry Potter and his best friend Lily. The primary basis for her case rested on her own purported invention of the word Muggles. Rowling, along with Scholastic Press, who were an American publisher, and Warner Brothers, holders of the series' film rights, preempted Stueffer in 2002 with a suit of their own seeking a declaratory judgment that they had not infringed on any of Stueffer's works. The court found in Rowling's favour, granting summary judgment and holding that no reasonable juror could find a likelihood of confusion as to the source of the two parties' works. During the course of the trial, it was held that Rowling proved by clear and convincing evidence that Stueffer had perpetrated a fraud on the court through her submission of fraudulent documents, as well as through her untruthful testimony, including changing pages years after the fact to retroactively insert the word Muggle. Her case was dismissed with prejudice, and she was fined $50,000 for her pattern of intentional bad faith conduct. Accordingly, the threat that appeared from Nancy Stueffer was snuffed out, and legitimately so. That might point to someone simply defending their rights, or bear in mind, however, even a narcissist would look to defend their rights where they've been legitimately impinged upon, as a consequence, of course, of it being a threat to control. On another occasion, a Canadian band called Weird Sisters, spelled W-Y-R-D, issued proceedings in relation to a lawsuit against Warner Brothers arising out of the use of their name. Rowling had written a scene in the novel in which a band called the Weird Sisters, spelled differently, appeared at a school dance, and the group owned the rights to the name in Canada. Warner Brothers offered 5,000 Canadian dollars, later 50,000 Canadian dollars for the use of the name, but the band refused it, and they brought a $40 million Canadian dollar lawsuit against Warner. They also brought an interlocutory injunction, hoping to prevent the release of the film. The injunction application was dismissed, and the entire suit was dismissed in November 2005. And the band had to pay Warner Brothers 140,000 Canadian dollars in legal costs. Another defeat. In June 2009, the estate of Adrian Jacobs, a children's author who died in 1997, sued Rowling's publishers Bloomsbury for £500 million, accusing Rowling of having plagiarised substantial parts of his work in writing the novel Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. It was claimed that a scene in The Goblet of Fire was substantially similar to Jacob's book The Adventures of Willy the Wizard, Livid Land. They also launched a joint suit against Rowling and her publishers. It was the case also that the estate filed suit against Rowling's American publisher, demanding that the company burn all copies of The Goblet of Fire. The US lawsuit against Scholastic in the United States was dismissed. The judge in the case stated there was not enough similarity between the two books to make a case for plagiarism. In the UK courts, Paul Allen, a trustee of the Jacob estate, was ordered to pay as security to the court 65% of the costs faced by Bloomsbury and Rowling, amounting to over $1.5 million, to avoid the claim being struck out. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to do so. The court will often order for security for costs in such circumstances where there's a concern as to the ability of a party to pay in the event the claim fails. He wasn't able to make the payment that was ordered, and therefore the court struck his claim out. Accordingly, 3 instances of allegations of infringement, none succeeded, one failing as a consequence of a failure to abide by an interlocutory order with regard to the payment for security for costs. It's also been suggested that Rowling has been greatly inspired by Jill Murphy's Worst Witch series. However, inspired and influenced by are a long way from plagiarism. Interestingly, there is a book written by Astrid Lindgren, Mio, My Mio, which is about an orphan boy living with his abusive aunt and uncle who tell him his father was a worthless bum. He's rescued by a giant to be taken to a magical land where he obtains a BFF, a flying means of locomotion, and an invisibility cloak. But it turns out he's subject to a prophecy that he must kill a big sinister baddie whose name everyone fears to pronounce, but who also happens to be unkillable. But he manages to do so through a couple of deus ex machinas. Oh, and someone is resurrected thanks to a mother's love. Interestingly, Rowling was being praised for writing meaningfully about death in relation to Cedric Diggory in children's literature, whereas Astrid Lindgren repeatedly wrote about children's deaths, not just in Mio, My Mio, but also in 3 short stories in the bundle The Red Bird, The Brothers Lionheart, and did so twice. Furthermore, one of the things that Rowling talked about was that she was a single mother while writing Harry Potter. Anne Lindgren was also a single unmarried mother back in the 1920s, when that was considered scandalous, while Rowling was a single divorcee mother in the 1990s, which had become accepted and even commonplace. Some might suggest that she seemed to be emulating Lindgren's life as well. Similarities pointed out. Now, as you know from my other work, an individual that takes the work of others and utilises it for themselves doesn't necessarily mean that they're a narcissist, but narcissists commonly do so as a consequence of the sense of entitlement, the lack of accountability that is exhibited. Furthermore, it's done by way of character trait acquisition. Now, there are suggestions of similarities between the work of J.K. Rowling and that of other people. For instance, what I've just described to you in relation to Astrid Lindgren. Whilst there has not been any court cases that has found any plagiarism, it's clear that there have been influential aspects. Do we see that as simple influence in the way that everybody is influenced by existing works out there who could not be? Or is it something more? Might it be seen as a form of character trait acquisition? It's not just the case of examination of when people have accused J.K. Rowling and failed in relation to plagiarism, but also in respect of seeking to prevent misuse of her works also. For instance, in 2000, in the lead-up to the release of the first Harry Potter film, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Warner Brothers sent a series of letters to owners of Harry Potter fan sites demanding that, to protect their intellectual property rights, they hand over their domain names. The action resulted in negative publicity for the company when the 15-year-old webmaster of the British fan site harrypotterguide.co.uk was reduced to tears by what were described by her father as unnecessary bully tactics. Eventually, the corporation backed down in the face of media opposition and declared that as the site was non-commercial, it didn't violate the trademark. In their May 2004 issue, the US Army publication, the Preventative Maintenance Monthly, which instructs soldiers on how to maintain their equipment, featured a spoof comic based on Harry Potter, featuring a character named Topper who reside at Mogmart School under Professor Rumbledore. The publication received notice from Rowling's lawyers that the comics breached copyright, though the magazine's editor Ken Crunk claimed that no violation had taken place because the drawings didn't look like any of the characters from Harry Potter. After a discussion with Rowling's representatives, the magazine agreed not to use the characters again. In 2004, Rowling and Time Warner launched legal actions against Bazy.com, now the Indian branch of the online auction site eBay. The site had hosted illegally created ebooks of Harry Potter, which Rowling had never agreed to be published. In 2005, Rowling warned her fans on her website that various signed Harry Potter memorabilia appeared for sale on eBay did not in fact use her signature. She urged her fans to protest eBay to prevent other children from being swindled. In 2007, Rowling launched lawsuits against a number of users of the site, obtaining a series of stay orders, preventing them from selling her work. However, eBay claimed that in her dealings with the media, Rowling had falsely claimed that her injunctions had been against eBay itself. In June 2007, eBay filed papers with the Delhi High Court, alleging that Rowling had caused them immense humiliation and harassment. The High Court circumvented the application, claiming that it could not make such a judgment until the case went to trial. In October 2007, Warner Brothers and Rowling sued Michigan-based publishing firm RDR Books to block the publication of a 400-page book version of the Harry Potter Lexicon, an online reference guide to her work. Rowling, who previously had a good relationship with Lexicon owner Steve Vander Ark, reiterated on her website that she plans to write a Harry Potter encyclopedia, and the publication of a similar book before her own would hurt the proceeds of the official encyclopedia, which she plans to give to charity. A judge later barred publication of the book in any form until the case was resolved. In November 2007, The Scotsman reported that Rowling had threatened legal action against American computer programmer G. Norman Lippert for allegedly violating her intellectual property rights by producing and publishing the online novel James Potter and the Hall of Elders Crossing, an unofficial and unauthorized continuation of the Harry Potter series. Written as a fan fiction project for Litter's wives and sons, the novel is set 18 years after the end of the last official instalment in the series, Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, and describes the adventures of Harry Potter's son, James Sirius Potter, during his first year at Hogwarts. However, after Lippert offered Rowling an advance copy of the novel, Rowling dismissed her threat and said she supported the novel and any others like it. Accordingly, various instances of litigation and legal threats. Is this a narcissist throwing their weight around? Because this is seen as threats to control, seen through that particular matrix? Or is this simply someone quite properly protecting their life's work from other people seeking to make money off the back of it? Well, we can look at all of that in the round. But those are some legal controversies that have surrounded J.K. Rowling. In the next part, we're going to examine one of the most prominent controversies that has taken place, which is her battle with the trans community. Join me in part 7.